a witch! I have told you not to let your mother come to this house again.
Please, Kai.
I lose our baby anytime she comes.
Talk about this.
This is the 6th time.
No, Ado. Stop calling my mother a witch. I can't take this from you.
The day Chidi Okonkwo's life changed, he wasn't looking for anything. He was covered in sight dust, his boots were ruined, and all he wanted was cold water. He found something else entirely. She was standing 2 stalls away from the roadside vendor, laughing at something her friend had said. The kind of laugh that doesn't ask for permission, that comes from somewhere unguarded and real. Dark-skinned, high cheekbones, standing with her weight on one leg like she owned whatever ground she was on. Chidi bought 3 bottles of water and walked over before he could think of a reason not to. "Do we look thirsty?" she said, eyeing the bottle he offered her. Her friend, lighter-skinned, quick smile, already reaching, grabbed hers without hesitation. "Speak for yourself, Adaeze. I'm very thirsty." Adaeze. He repeated the name in his head like a man memorizing something important. She took the water, and when she smiled, just slightly, just for a second, Chidi knew he was in serious trouble. What he didn't notice in that moment was the way the friend's eyes moved between them. How they lingered on him a bit too long. How the smile she wore didn't quite reach the place behind her eyes. Her name was Chika, and she had seen Chidi first. She would not forget that. 7 months of phone calls, weekend visits, and evening walks to Okpara Inland's dusty paths later, Chidi drove Adaeze to Inewi to meet his mother. He told her not to worry. Adaeze dressed carefully anyway, modest, respectful. She had memorized a few things about his family, rehearsed her Igbo greetings, brought a gift. She was a primary school teacher. She understood how first impressions became permanent ones. Mama Ngozi opened the door, and her face opened genuinely, beautifully at the sight of Adaeze. She took both her hands, smiled at her son with the particular satisfaction of a woman whose prayers have been answered. "Chidi, where have you been hiding this one?" Adaeze exhaled. Chidi caught her eye and gave her a quiet, "I told you so" look. Then Mama Ngozi sat them down, offered food, and began her questions. Name, family, education, and then, almost casually, the way a surgeon makes the first cut. "Your father's people, where are they from?" "Ogutama, Imo State." 1 second. That was all it took. 1 second where something crossed Mama Ngozi's face. Not anger, not disgust. Something quieter and more dangerous. A door swinging shut. A warmth retreating behind glass. She recovered quickly. Smiled. Changed the subject. But Adaeze had seen it. Every cell in her body had registered it the way skin registers a drop in temperature. In the car home, she waited until they had cleared the compound gates. "Chidi. Your mother doesn't like me." He glanced at her. She was perfectly warm. "I'm a teacher. I read faces for a living." She looked out the window at the darkening road. "The moment I said Oguta, she left. Not the room, just left." Something in her closed. Chidi's hands tightened slightly on the wheel. "I'm not saying this to cause problems," Adaeze said quietly. "I'm telling you because I need to know. If this becomes what I think it might become, Will you see it? Or will you always be looking somewhere else? The question sat between them in the car, heavier than either of them acknowledged. Chidi reached over and took her hand. I love you. That's what I know. Adaeze nodded slowly. It was a good answer. She just wasn't sure yet if it was enough. They married in December. 2 families, 1 canopy, enough jollof rice to solve a regional dispute. Mama Ngozi danced, held Adaeze's hand during the wine carrying, called her Nwam, my child, in front of everyone who was watching. Adaeze told herself, people can change. Love can build bridges. Give it time. She gave it time. What she got instead were the small cuts, the kind that don't bleed immediately. I hope she's learning to cook your food properly, not her people's way. Chidi, you are too patient with that girl. When will she give you children? A home without children is not yet a home. Said in phone calls Adaeze wasn't meant to hear. Said through Auntie Rosaline, the family's designated messenger. Said in the particular code that Nigerian mothers-in-law have perfected over generations. Always deniable, always received. Adaeze absorbed it. She was good at absorbing things. She cooked, she called, she visited, she tried. Chika tried in different ways. She was always present, the devoted best friend, the one who knew where the spare key was kept, the one Mama Ngozi had inexplicably grown fond of on the occasions they overlapped. Now that Chika, Mama Ngozi had said once, not knowing Adaeze was in the hallway, that girl has sense. Adaeze stood in the hallway for a moment. Then she went to the kitchen and finished making the soup. When the pregnancy test showed 2 lines, Adaeze sat on the bathroom floor and simply breathed. She told Chidi over dinner, sliding a small envelope across the table. He opened it, looked up at her, and his eyes went glassy in the way that undoes a woman completely. They held each other in the kitchen for a long time. Chika arrived the next afternoon with gifts, body butter, ginger sweets, a pregnancy devotional. She hugged Adaeze and rocked her gently and whispered, God has blessed you. With a sincerity so complete that Adaeze, she felt ashamed for every small doubt she had ever entertained. 3 months in, Mama Ngozi arrived unannounced. No call. A travel bag, a smile. A pregnant woman needs family. Adaeze welcomed her, made her comfortable, cooked her preferred meals. Chika came by that evening and they all ate together. Mama Ngozi holding court, Chika laughing at all the right moments. Adaeze went to bed that night tired but peaceful. She woke before dawn to a pain so absolute she couldn't speak. By the time Chidi got her to the hospital, the baby was already gone. The doctor used words like incomplete miscarriage and no identifiable cause, and more common than people know. Adaeze lay in the hospital bed and stared at the ceiling. The grief was too large for tears. It had filled her from the inside, edge to edge, leaving no room for anything else. Mama Ngozi, when she heard, said, "It is God's will. Next time." Then she packed her bag and went home. Chika held Adaeze and wept on her behalf, which Adaeze was grateful for because she still could not. What Adaeze didn't know, what she wouldn't know for a long time, was that the night before the miscarriage, something had been left near her front door. Something small, something wrapped in cloth. And the hand that placed it there was one she would never have suspected. The second pregnancy, Adaeze told almost no one. She was superstitious now, protective of the secret the way you protect a flame in wind. Cupped hands, held breath, no sudden movements. 11 weeks in, Mama Ngozi called to say she was passing through and would spend a few nights. Adaze's hand tightened on the phone. Of course, Mama. You are welcome. Mama Ngozi arrived Friday. By Sunday, Adaeze was in the hospital. The third pregnancy, Mama Ngozi didn't come. But Chika did, the evening before it happened. She'd brought food, sat close, prayed over Adaze's belly with her hands warm and her voice setting. This one will stay, Chika said firmly, like a woman rebuking doubt itself. I speak life over this child. The next morning, the bleeding started. By the fourth pregnancy, Adaeze had gone quiet in a way that worried Chidi more than crying would have. She told no one, not her mother, not her aunties, not a single friend. She was 10 weeks in when she made her mistake. Chika arrived unexpectedly. She always arrived unexpectedly. That was simply her way. With Tupperware and warmth and 14 years of friendship worn on her face like something sacred. And Adaeze, who was lonely and frightened and 14 weeks along, told her. Chika's face did something in that fraction of a second. A flicker, gone before it fully formed, like a light bulb surging before it steadies. Something that was not joy. Something that lived on the other side of joy entirely. Then the squeal, the embrace, the I knew God would come through. 3 weeks later, Wednesday morning, gone. 4 babies. 4 times. A pattern so precise it had stopped feeling like coincidence and started feeling like a message. Adaeze sat in the room they had never decorated but could never bring themselves to use for anything else. And she said to Chidi, in a voice stripped of everything except the truth, something is following these pregnancies. And it is not medical. Chidi looked at his wife. At the clarity in her eyes, the stillness of a woman who had moved clean through grief into something harder and sharper on the other side. Every time your mother came, the first, the second, and the ones she didn't come for, she stopped, steadied. Chika was there, Chidi, every single time. The room held the silence between them. Tell me everything, he said quietly. She did. Downstairs, Mrs. Adaeze, the retired civil servant in the flat below, the woman who watched everything from her kitchen window and had been carrying a secret for months, was finally picking up her phone. Mrs. Adaeze came to the door on a Thursday afternoon while Chidi was at work. She apologized for waiting so long. She said she hadn't known what to do with what she'd seen. She said the fourth loss had finally made her conscience too heavy to carry. She had seen Chika enter the compound multiple times during hours when Adaeze was at medical appointments. Had seen her bring in an older woman, not Mama Ngozi, someone else, short, a white wrapper, a face Mrs. Adaeze didn't know. They would stay an hour, leave quietly. On one occasion, Mrs. Adaeze had found a small cloth bundle near the flower pot by the front door and had photographed it before it disappeared. She handed Adaeze her phone. Adaeze looked at the photograph for a long time. Then she called her husband. When they confronted Chika, she wept fluently The tears of someone who had rehearsed this scenario and prepared accordingly. She called on God. She called on their 14 years. She asked Adaeze how she could believe such a thing about someone who loved her. But Chidi had already spoken to Mrs. Eze, had already had the flat examined, had already made every call that needed to be made. When the evidence was placed before her and the denial had nowhere left to go, something in Chika simply collapsed. The performance fell away. What was underneath was not a monster. It was something sadder and more ordinary. A woman consumed by a want she had never resolved, a wound she had never treated, a lie she had lived inside for so long she had almost forgotten it was one. She had loved Chidi. From that first moment on the dusty road in Okpara inland, when he had walked towards them with water and given his eyes completely to Adaeze, something in Chika had broken and never healed. She had stood beside their friendship like a woman standing outside a lit window in the cold, smiling through the glass. She had made a contact, used a key, won the face of a best friend while doing the unthinkable to the person who trusted her most. 4 times. Mama Ngozi, when she was told, sat very still for a very long time. Then she wept. Not theatre, not performance, but the raw and ugly grief of a woman who understood, perhaps for the first time, what her coldness had cost. Her disapproval, her distance, her failure to truly cover her son's wife. It had not caused this, but it had created the cracks. And through those cracks, something had entered that should never have been let near. She came to their house. She did not call ahead. When Adaeze opened the door, Mama Ngozi went to her knees on the doorstep. "I have wronged you," the old woman said, her voice stripped bare. "From the very beginning, I have wronged you. And I was too proud to see what it was costing." Adaeze stood in the doorway. And after a moment, not because it was easy, not because the debt was paid, but because she had chosen long ago to be the kind of woman who could hold pain without becoming it, she stepped aside. "Come in, Mama." 16 weeks. The furthest she had ever come. Adaeze sat by the window in the early morning quiet, one hand resting on her belly. The white baby socks with the yellow sun on the ankle sitting in a square of light on the windowsill where she could always see them. Chika was gone, dissolved like smoke when the light burned away. Mama Ngozi called now, asked about her, specifically. Was building something, slowly, imperfectly, lit, but building. And Chidi slept in the next room. The man who had chosen her on a dusty road and had not stopped choosing her through every dark season that followed. Adaeze looked down at her belly. "Hold on," she whispered, to the life inside her, to herself. Outside, the sun was rising. The seed had survived everything. Now, finally, it was time to grow.